Hey everyone, it's the year 1999. I'm here today to talk about magic weapons in Dungeons & Dragons, or I suppose tabletop role-playing games in general. Now, a problem facing most magic weapons is that they're pretty boring. You give a player a +1 sword, and that's as deep as it goes. So this episode I'm going to suggest ways to fix it, and provide some examples on better magic items. So, let's begin. Number 1, write some lore. Seriously, a simple background turns a +1 weapon into a memorable and valued treasure, maybe tied to a legendary figure in your setting, or even better, a player character from a previous campaign. Even if you do nothing else, just a line or two of flavor text can turn the generic into the special. Like, seriously, there's a reason why I'm putting this at the front. It's arguably the easiest thing you can do to just make a weapon special. I would recommend doing this for pretty much anything, and who knows, maybe it ends up forming into whole quests or a baseline of another campaign, just out of something small. But next up, maybe something special about it. Some specific attribute. It doesn't need to be that it does more damage, but maybe it's just that it does a different type of damage, or works particularly well against a certain type of creature. Or maybe, you have a quarterstaff that can grow as a reach weapon. Number 3 is a utility function. As much as players love their weapons, they also love magic items that do cool stuff. Good examples of this are the Luck Blade and the Sword of Life Stealing. Next is the Melius item, from the Latin word meliorium, meaning improvement. This is just my term for a magic item that improves over time. Instead of players finding new items after each quest, just have the items that they have level up with the party. The more they use an item, the stronger it becomes. Next is the false appearances. Just make it look non-threatening, but it's actually really powerful. Next is Enchantments. This is like Melius items, but the player chooses what upgrades their item gets. I could see basing this a little on Skyrim, where they have to go find the enchantment somewhere and then apply it to their item. And if you want a list of ideas, I would recommend looking in the Artificer class under their infusions. You can get a lot of power ideas for that. Now, let's say, for example, maybe the player wants their weapon to be really good against a particular type of monster. Or maybe they want it to come back to them after they throw it. Well, they can do that. Now, why just upgrade your existing items when you can make your own magic items from the start? The Dungeon Master's Guide and Xanathar's Guide to Everything talk about the time and money requirements to build magic items, but I'm more interested in specific ingredients. Perhaps you need to find a special metal, or you need to use a body part that you find from a specific creature. Next is the Tandem Item. This comes from the Latin word tandem, meaning at length, but in a modern context it means two or more things working together. After all, tandem bike is a long bike, hence at length. This could be as simple as, hopping on a broom of flying in conjunction with your +1 weapon in order to snipe someone from a distance. Or it could be baked into the item itself. For example, the Hammer of Thunderbolts requires wearing a belt of giant strength and a gauntlet of ogre power. Now, I would like to point out that these items don't actually require that you are attuned to all three. You just need to be wearing the gauntlet and the belt. So yeah, that's something fun to play with if your DM gives you these items. Now, I think this would help if I were to give some examples. For starters, let's talk about my main world setting of Kinza, where I have 2 ongoing campaigns. The first is the EnterTheDungeon show that meets about 3 times a month. They are currently hunting the Planar Gems. These are magical artifacts that are each tied to a different plane of existence. These items all grow in power, and they have lore around them. They have combat and utility functions. The party also knows that these gems can be used in conjunction with each other for special powers, and that they could be used to craft new magical items. In addition, they do have some other fun stuff. For example, the Alchemist Goliath Earth Mover has a +1 frying pan that I'm sure he would love to enchant to fly back to him, so that way he could throw it. So then this is, enchantment and a false appearance weapon. Bada bing, bada boom. My other campaign is set 100 years prior and is right now running the Out of the Abyss module. There's currently the bard Jake Actor, who has the Sword of the Smiley Face, a magic longsword that uses charisma instead of strength, but as of now does non-magical damage. On the other hand, the barbarian Farron Monroe has the Sword of the Frostman's Hunt, a +1 longsword, and while bearing this weapon and no shield, he has resistance to ice damage, and once a day he can also summon a storm aura to attack nearby enemies and to defend himself. I kind of love the idea of these swords showing up in later campaigns with their power sets perhaps altered based on how Farron and Jake used them during the adventures. And you know what? If Jake Actor lives long enough, he's definitely the sort to build a magical dungeon to use as his tomb, and then put his treasures in there for future adventurers to, prove their mettle by going in there and claiming the items. I mean, that could be a great first quest for a future campaign. Now, let's give some more miscellaneous examples. For crafting, perhaps there's a series of quests to craft the Embrin's Cutlass. To do this, they must first obtain the instructions from an ancient book in a dwarven citadel. Then they have to get some moon silver from a colony of Eldrin, deep within a fey forest. This silver must then be smelted over a fire of righteousness, which can only be made by casting Sacred Flame on contrite coal found in the mines of the mind, which is home to many Illithid. And then even after they've smelted it, they could only cool it properly using a combination of holy water and the wing of an angel that they would presumably obtain by doing a quest for that celestial. And then with all these powers combined, they would have a very dangerous and very powerful item that they could use to vanquish their enemies. But just be careful not to skip a step, otherwise you might end up like this.
Behold, evil wizard Maleficschmerz. I hold the sword Excalibur. Get a good look at it. For it is the instrument of your demise. Okay, so big deal. The end's come off.
Now you could have an entire campaign focused around the party finding and leveling up, let's say, the 4 elemental swords to use against the, forces of evil. And maybe even perhaps something less cliche if you really wanted to. This way you could have lore, Melius, and tandem items. Give each one of them a utility function, and you might not need any other magic items, save for perhaps a bag of holding. So the wind sword would boost your speed, level it up to do weaker attacks against further away targets, do lightning damage, and maybe even fly. The water sword can heal you, level up to be able to swim and breathe underwater, summon waves. The fire sword lets you resist fire, maybe launch fireballs, and then eventual immunity to fire. And then the earth sword could boost your AC, give you maybe extra HP, tremor sense, and let you find minerals. The earth sword would let you boost your AC, help you find minerals, and maybe even give you tremor sense. And as long as we're here, let's just run through a quick list of some other random magic items. A rogue whose dagger collection includes models that deal fire, electric, and poison damage. Even if they're mechanical rather than magical, that would be great for overcoming resistances to different damage types, and would be a really fun conceit for a rogue. Let's see now, there's the Demon Slayer, does radiant damage, and after slaying 10 demons, it levels up to become +1. Killing more fiends and performing acts of great righteousness can let you heal people and fly around like an angel. Blade of the Mage, wizards and sorcerers are intrinsically proficient, expend spell slots in order for it to do more damage, kind of like a paladin. Then there's the Psionic Saber, a sentient weapon that speaks in the wielder's mind, lets the user cast things like Message and Mage Hand and the like. The Sahuagin Spear gives the user Blood Frenzy abilities, and level it up for Shark Telepathy, and a whacking stick that does psychic damage. You don't even have to hit the target all that hard, just make contact, boom, psychic damage. And that's the kind of fun, wacky shenanigans that I'm encouraging with these magic items, or something more serious if you want. And that's all we really have time for today. Tell me what you think down in the comments, and go ahead and design some special magic items. Maybe even a set of them that could work together. If you want to hear more about magic items, I have a video counting down my favorite common items. Number 7 will shock you. Let's see now, there's the Enter the Dungeon and Out of the Abyss campaign. Those are both published here on YouTube, on my Enter the Dungeon channel. And I have another campaign based around the many franchises discussed by the Super Carlin brothers. And links to all those down below. Until next time, I'm the Heirs 1999. Have a great day, and God bless.